So let's just twist. Let's get the spine going. So after a few turns, you should be able to see the wall behind you quite easily. Okay, so now just coming forwards, hands on the floor. And just feel the ground. So feel the middle of the palm cupping away from the ground as you press your fingertips into the ground. So this is the sort of contact that we want. Part of our hand is pressing into the ground, but another part, the middle, is drawing up from the ground and sucking, as though sucking some energy from the ground. And then you can just use your breathing. You can, as you breathe in, you can imagine sucking energy up the arms into the middle of the back. And then just twisting round to the side of it. And just feel how as soon as you're asymmetrical, the two hands feel quite different. Yeah, so you're sort of working the ground with your hands, using the muscles in your abdomen. So the lower back, the belly, the muscles at the sides, and the ring muscles, you know, the anus and the breathing muscles, the diaphragm. So the whole area is sort of writhing away and away in order to encourage the ground to give up some of its energy. And then just round a bit more if you can. Just feel the twist in the spine. Pull the belly in a little bit so that whole area is quite strong. And then just back. So it's like you just sort of keep contact with the ground, like your life depends upon it. So you know you can't take both hands off the ground. So just want the feeling, there's a little bit like a fight's going on. So you're rousing your ire and your fire. Background. And now just bringing the head down and just touching the floor with the forehead lightly. Try and keep the back extending so that you don't come off the cushion too much. Just really let it relax into the hip joints, the tops of the femurs, the sacroiliacs. And then back up. And now just leaning back. And again, here obviously it's the belly muscles. So just really use those, really tighten them. Yeah, so this needs to be practiced, but you'd like to be able to just go back without using your hands too much. Yeah, so you can really lean back and get the spine to really arch like a back bend, keeping the belly really tight. Then back up. And then just, again, like a side bend. So here, just down to the ground, but feeling it stretching here. And up. Yeah, so it's easier to sort of, in a sense, work this area, the midriff, belly back, when you're seated, because the seating obviously immobilizes your hips and your sacrum. Okay, let's just try a few of the heart qigong. So just feel, as you send the hands up, just feel the spine sort of righting itself. It's stretching, almost like you're trying to get a little bit of air between each vertebra. It's always revealing, when I work with people, it doesn't matter how good their posture is, it can always be better. Yeah? There's always part of their spine that's just a little bit collapsed. And in a sense, you could say that's where the ego sort of resides. So the ego is basically, it relies on depression. So when we get lonely and depressed, we talk to ourselves. Yeah, sad, really. So the spine is extending, the heart is lifting, but that's enabling something to just settle down my spine. Yeah, so it's only really when I lift the heart that I can properly sink. So this is the truth that we need to really believe. Yeah, we really need to just feel it, and then one's less inclined to let circumstances get you down. So the bottom of my spine is driving down through the sitting bones and into the cushion, whilst my heart is lifting. And one more. And so we have body, obviously, mind and heart. So discipline is absolutely necessary to train the body and the mind. And without discipline, they will both be pretty much useless. But you can't really train the heart with discipline. And what we would like is not just a mind and a body, but a heart mind and a heart body. So it's not the body of an athlete, it's the body of a compassionate person. Yeah. So the way you train the heart is by putting yourself into situations where you are attending to the needs of the other. So forgetting self and just putting their needs first. That's how we practice heart. So we just want an element of that in our practice, in the discipline that we impose upon the body and the discipline we impose upon the mind. Yeah. And it's that really develops the softness of Tai Chi. So all those hours of pushing hands that we did, you know, when I first came to Israel, I calculated that I practiced about 20,000 hours of pushing hands with John and at John's place, yeah. And it was basically next to useless, technically. I mean, it doesn't mean that you're going to be able to yield to anyone, and it doesn't develop a root. But what it does develop is a feeling for the other person, yeah. And that's more important than anything, really, because without that, you know, you don't become soft, you don't become compassionate, yeah. Okay. So now let's just push like you're elevating yourself from the cushion. So you're just sort of lifting yourself so the sacrum can just hang down heavily and extend, and then just bring the feet out in front. Yeah. And just hold it. So just feel the feet. So now it's my arms that are supporting me, and my feet are more like these arms that are out in front of me, feeling the ground. You know, so I want to be able to just, you know, move them around sensitively and inquisitively. There's this thing about the arms, they're interested in everything. Your hands want to get into everything. We want the same feeling with the feet. Yeah? Okay, so let's just start a bit differently. Let's just sort of jog on the spot. And just really, just trying to loosen the hip area. So when it loosens, it feels as though it gets wider. It's like the opposite of the model on the, you know, when the model walks the catwalk, they sort of cross the legs over like this to make their bums wiggle and then look more sexy. So it's a bit like when we walk, when you walk in a Tai Chi way, it's like there's two tracks like this with a sort of gap between. And that's just the loose hips. If you look at Chen Manqing, you know, he's really sort of bandy-legged. You know, he's basically sort of walking around like this, yeah, because of all that space. And really feeling here, you know, he's always touching himself here. And so this lump, not the iliac crest, but, you know, this sort of lump here, it's just really important to have some sort of sensitivity, some feeling for it. So the hips, the shoulders, and the jaw, they're all the same thing, really. I mean, dancers call the jaw the hips of the head. Yeah? So when you're relaxed here, then the shoulders should really drop down and the jaw should sort of widen. And it's just a different mind, yeah? It's just a soft, happy mind, really, content, yeah? Cheerful, smiling. Yeah, so they say, you know, smile into the hips. So just imagine a warm smile widening across. So have some sort of focus in the middle, but it doesn't have to be tight. Yeah, so the head is on high. Yeah, so in a sense, you know, when you're on high, the only place to go is down. So it's just natural when you're throwing energy up with your posture into the head. When you're feeding the ego, the only way to go is depression. Yeah. So here we're just trying to get down to earth, especially through the back, and just feel as though you're just under the ground looking up. Things are looking up. Yeah. There's that general optimism, hope. Yeah. Hopeful. So just, just appreciate how easy it is for circumstance to change your mind. Yeah, you can be feeling miserable, and then suddenly there's a phone call from an old friend, and suddenly you're cheerful. Yeah, and so the mind is just really susceptible. You know, it can change at a drop of a hat. So what we want to become is masters of our mood. We want to be able to just change our mind with an act of will rather than having to wait for that phone call. It's the same with practice. If if the practice is too disciplined in the sense that it's something that there's an aspect of your hardness that's imposing, then there'll always be a tinge of sort of resentment and, oh, not this again, this sort of attitude. So what we want to do is just to be able to come to the practice almost obliquely. So it sort of takes us by surprise and we can bring some sort of real enthusiasm just to generate a little bit of novelty. So we want each session to just have its own character, not be a copy of the when we first start, you have a good practice session one day and the next day says, yeah, I'll do what I did yesterday. Of course, it never works. So just really loose, yeah? Yeah, so the ego is one. It's a singular entity. I mean, it's full of contradictions and everything, but I feel it as me. It is my identity, my uniqueness, yeah? And yet the body and the brain are just eminently two. You know, I have two sides. I dance, you know, so when I move, the two sides of my body are dancing together, yeah? And the same when you use the mind, you know? There should be that sort of rational, reasonable side, but also this playful, intuitive, creative side, and they're sort of just playing with each other. So when you exist in that sort of environment, an environment of two, an environment of yin and yang, then the ego will just, it can't be quite so strong and dominant, yeah? Yes, it's more like a sort of foot exercise, this, I think of it as. So just try and get the feet sort of twisting and turning a little bit, like you're rolling over the toes as you go down into the foot. That's why I love those 5-finger shoes, you know, the Vibrams, because the rubber really encourages your foot to twist and turn. So the feet become much more active. Okay. And now let's just work against the wall. So just lean on the wall. Let yourself relax into it. And so we use the wall because we don't normally, yeah? So we normally have our weight over our feet, and we're very good at just standing on our feet. I mean, they say, you know, standing on human feet is actually really quite a difficult task, because you think of the feet, they're quite small. So it's like, you know, all the simple tasks, all the tasks that we sort of do without thinking, we do automatically. There's a sense in which we get all of them wrong. You know, so from breathing to, you know, if you think like the first act of the baby, it's not really breathing, it's actually just extending its spine to push its head down the birth canal. And that's almost like a panic response to these contractions that are being placed upon it by the mother's womb. So we just need to look at all of these very simple actions and just see, you know, am I tense? Could I do them in a more relaxed way? So just using the wall and the action between your feet and your hands, just to bring the energy and the strength and the power down into the lower back and the belly, which is where we would like it to reside and start. Yeah. So I'm using my feet and my weight transfer to activate the muscles in the lower back. But ultimately, I would like this pacing with my feet to come from those muscles rather than to be driven into those muscles. So, Okay, and now let's just turn and just lean on it with the back. So again, this should now feel quite a relief after what we've just been doing, but the relief will soon pass as you are compelled to sort of work in the posture. Like there's something in you that just is not content to just rest. It just wants to work and become active. Yeah? And so again, just using the legs to just roll the sacrum a little bit on the wall. So feel the movement as flows, you know, you're sort of flowing from one side to the other. Magmatic flows. Remember, John was always saying you should feel like molten rock. So like magma, yeah, that's slowly flowing, but it's retaining a sort of crystalline structure. It's not a complete fluid. It's like one of these strange fluids that's sometimes fluid and sometimes solid. Yeah. Thixotropic. Ooh. And just feel, you know, when you move side to side, you know, no matter how subtly, it's always like a figure of eight. So the figure of eight is always there because we're always moving. Even the breath, you can feel it as a figure of eight. So what it just means really is that things, when they return, they take a slightly different path. They don't go back the way they came. Okay, so let's. Yeah, so just feel that movement is still in the body. Yeah, so when there's something resisting you, then it just sort of forces that sort of meaningful movement. So we'd just like to be able to just produce that resistance with the mind. You remember when, you know, John devised that apparatus that would get you stronger in a good Tai Chi way. I mean, he basically just basically a wetsuit that is just too tight, and everything you want to do is inhibited, but it's inhibited by this sort of rubbery stretchiness. So it's not inhibited by a wall. So even breathing, you're having to push against something. Yeah, so just imagine you're in syrup or treacle, something that's really viscous, and you really have to work. So here it's not just the arm muscles, you've really got to work these muscles here to get the arms moving, because there's just not enough strength in your arms. So you have to use the belly here and the lower back here. Just feel it as it switches from the belly to the back. You don't want to break. There has to be a sort of overlap when it changes. So a break will just mean you've lost concentration, really. So those points where the mind wants to break, we have to make those points even more intense, just to counter the mind's reluctance to actually be real. Yeah, you can see how John gave himself a hernia practicing this sort of thing. Ooh, la, ba, 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 ba. Okay. And now just alternating. Yeah, so really we're, because we're a left and a right, we're, so we've got a left side and a right side. So in Tai Chi, they call that single weighted. So what John used to say, to start off with, the two most important principles in Tai Chi are like sink and relax and turn the waist. He says, but eventually everything is just single weightedness. Yeah. So it's this alternating machine. And just feeling how this hand opens because this one closes. The closure forces the other one to open. It's like you can only have a certain amount of closeness in the body. One side opens because the other side closes. And it just introduces a natural turn. Yeah, so full, when the leg is full, it's also closed. And when the leg is empty, it's also open. So open, closed, full and empty. And now let's just take it. It's basically the same thing, but just feeling the figure of 8 in the hips and the shoulders and the jaw. Yeah, so everything is the same really. It's just that motor, that alternating motor. So the whole form is that alternating motor. So feel the figure of 8 drooping down the back of the leg and rising up the front of the leg. Okay, so let's bring it back to riding horse. So just feel the feet on the ground. So what we'd like is the feeling that the sole of the foot has opened up so that there's like a clear passageway between what's beneath the ground and what's in me. So something in me just has to sort of open. It is like opening a door, and it's really difficult to sustain. Because we're always holding on inside, we're always holding on to like an identity, something that we feel we can rely on. And that's exactly the bit we need to let go of to make a proper connection with the ground. Because the root, your root is really just that openness. As soon as it opens up, something in you can flow down and something of the ground can flow up. And you're connected. But it's scary. Okay, now let's just try just stepping backwards and forwards. Just feeling the hips, this width in the hips. So, you know, if you just keep some width between the feet, so it's not, you know, the way we would tend to do it is like this. You get to that point where you're obviously single weighted, and then you step, and then you move. Yeah, so here, this is moving almost like a zigzag. You know, my Dan Chen is moving across here, and then it's moving across here. and across here. So the dantian is really mobile from side to side. So we want to try and feel it to be able to move. So the dantian is just in the middle, and this foot just pops forwards. It's almost like it, you know, you're not quite single weighted. So as I come into this foot is trying to keep me out here. Yeah? It's a bit like, you know, those flying steps that we used to do in the Dalu, you know, where you couldn't afford to bring the weight into the foot because you'd bang into the person. So you had to sort of just fly around with the foot. It's just like that. So you're not really balanced, but you do have this width. Trying to keep the sacrum relaxed so your bum's not sticking out. Yes, if you watch Chairman Ching, I mean, he's just so good at this. This is how he is. This is how he steps. So he can actually do this really leisurely, you know, without looking as though he's falling into the foot. Yeah, so we want the strength in the leg. It's not just the strength to be able to bear your weight, it's the strength to be able to keep your weight out of it. Just feel it in the hips, yeah? So, okay, so let's try the other foot. Remember, someone came, one of Charles's friends that used to study with John. He visited us, he lived in Puerto Rico, and he'd studied Chen style. And John said to him, okay, show us your Chen style. And it was really quite interesting because he never took the foot off the ground. He would slide it around because he says they never wanted to take the bubbling well away from the ground. And it actually looks really interesting. It had a real sort of dynamic quality. That's feeling here almost like we just want to keep the bubbling well as close to the ground as we can and not release the weight from the foot completely. Ugh. So, yeah, so there's a real action in the hip here. It's interesting. So as I come into the leg in order to force the leg to send something across into the other leg. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Okay, so maybe let's just try just a few postures. Yeah, so I'll do the left side, as is my habit. Yeah, so feel here how when we start, we are the one. You know, the feet are together. We're just aligned. We're like the letter I. I am the ego. I am the one. Yeah. So the first thing that we do is start turning. Yeah. So the first thing you do in Tai Chi is produce Tai Chi from Wu Chi. Wu Chi is the empty circle. And Tai Chi is the yin and yang separating out into the yin yang symbol. So I start by just sinking into a leg and just allowing myself to just turn. And that should just pop up the other foot and send it out, yeah? So now I have become two. And so when I come into this foot, it's quite interesting, like the single weighted, double weighted. It's not simple. It's not just I am single weighted. There's always this sort of, it's like part of you wants to be double weighted and part of you wants to be single weighted. And there's like this sort of contest. So when the arms come up here, really feel like there's two separate sides to your body. You're not just one thing, just doing this exercise. There's these two parts of your body, both bringing their respective arms up, and you're just trying to maintain some sort of balance and some semblance of togetherness. But they're sort of wanting to sort of go spastic, yeah? Yeah, so John, you remember John used to say, you know, you're single weighted. You have the weight more in one foot, but someone looking at you shouldn't really be able to tell. Yeah. So I know that I'm sort of preferring this foot a little bit, but I don't want to move too far across. Otherwise it just becomes obvious. Yeah. So let's try again. And again, I don't want to settle down into this leg so that I can suspend this foot forever. I want to move. So I go down into this leg in order to whip out this, same with the stepping that we've just done, and then here circling. I now have a tiny bit more weight here, and then just, okay. And now sinking. So really just bending this leg and allowing this to go down this leg. So that's this hand. Yeah. So as I sink, this hand is sort of following the energy down the leg, and this hand is just coming up to be on top of the ball. And then as I come into this spot, I want the same things to happen in this buttock. So it's going down into the ground. Now I don't have the opportunity of doing this because the form demands that I keep my arm up. So what happens is you just feel the elbow heavy. So here it's like my elbow is sort of doing this to go down the leg. Ooh, and I just really get into the ground, and then this can just pop forwards. This comes up, and here just making sure that you've got your headlights beaming forwards. And then here again, using the elbow to sort of dig down here. Ooh. Step. And again, just relaxing across here. This is what's so difficult, because as soon as we move, we tend to clump everything together. And so when you end up in the front foot, just really release here. So my sinking down into the foot sends this stream of energy out into the other leg. And then, yeah, so it's ward off, it's riding horse. So here, down into the legs. And then just, whoa, they're both coming up. And then just, ooh, I go down. Watch Dr. Chi when he does this. It's just so beautiful. And then this elbow down this leg. And then this just pops forwards. And now just split it up. So this arm comes up as I'm coming out of this leg. And this arm comes down as I'm coming into this leg. So again, this real sense of cross energy. And that demands that the hips remain open at the back, the sacroiliacs remain open. So there's a beautiful curve coming through this side of my body. And then again, the elbow takes me down my leg, and this just steps out. And again, from the back leg to bring this arm up. And then as I sink into the front leg, this can relax. And then just remember, you're pulling with the legs. As I sink into this leg is, ooh, is becoming interested. And it's that interest that draws me back into it. So I'm just striving to keep the hips relaxed. If I push with the leg too much, then the hip will seize up. And then just crossing hands. You know, so you just want to, you want the arms just to sort of take care of themselves, and all of your mind and concentration is in the lower body, because that's where it's at, really. That's where you have these two things interacting. Now, so let's try again. One more. Down this leg. Down the other leg with the elbow. Ooh. Stepping out, this arm comes up, and then I come into the front foot and just make sure my hips are square. And then this elbow goes down this leg. And use this foot to step from the back leg into the front leg. Ward off. So just keep it connected. It's like an elastic thread. So because it's elastic, it can wander, but it will always come back unless the elastic snaps, and that's just an indication that your mind has gone somewhere it shouldn't. Great. Okay, so let's just. Yeah, so there's always two, left and right, for you and the other. Okay, so now let's just. Yeah, so just straightening the legs without sticking the bum out. So you just have to feel that elastic pull down the backs of the legs from the ground. And so we want practice, yeah, the cushion or the form or your exercises to be home. So every time you come back to it, it's like you're coming home. So this real sense of relief, and you can just let go of all your defenses. And it just takes time for it to become that. And then really there's nothing else you want to do. And for me, that's happiness. Happiness is having a practice, having something that you want to do with your whole heart. Okay, right.